Hey everybody, KC here. Yes, here we are, part 4 of our ongoing conversation about leadership management conducted at the recent WAFC meeting in Denver. Again, great panel. Kevin Curry of Albertsons, Wendy Coldesina of Costco, Levi Wingo of Raley's, Nick Schott of Red Bull, Toby Saricki of Albertsons, Jake Sochi of PepsiCo, Adria Campbell of Malk Organics, and Paul Stoffel of Stater Brothers. And today in part 4, we talked a little bit about their experiences. They're all graduates at different years of the Food Industry Management Program at USC, very connected into WAFC. And I was curious from that experience, because they were all going to school with different people from different companies. What was the moment where they said, "Wow, I now get something I didn't get before"? Enjoy. I'm not sure if I mentioned it at the beginning, but all of these folks have been through the USC Food Industry Management program at various times. Some of you went together. All but Kevin, actually. Cynthia is still running the program, but you were all there during Cynthia's tenure. I'm just curious. I'm going to throw you to whoever wants to take this. Take it. Give me a light bulb moment. You're in the program, and you had a moment where you said, "I get it." And I maybe specifically when it comes to issues of leadership, when you realize, okay, now I get something I didn't get before.
I think for me, it was really easy, like as far as like experiencing that moment, because we had so many personality tests to take, and we dug really deep, really quick. And I cried so many times with my classmates. And I think through all those moments, I just realized like knowing yourself, like truly knowing who you are, is the only way you'll be able to understand and know others, like understanding yourself. And I think that was my light bulb moment, because I think we all, in life you're ever evolving and changing, but sometimes we don't take the time to understand our evolution and our changes that we're experiencing because we're in the motion of everything. But I think there's such power in understanding yourself and then being able to understand what others are, presenting to you. So.
Levi, you're nodding.
Yeah, I had a similar moment, and it was actually that we'd gone through a bunch of assessments. We were in our capstone group meeting, and we had like a knockdown, drag-out fight. And we all got to see how we work under pressure.
About what? Tell us more.
Keeping commitments, things like that. Yeah, Nancy was there, so she can tell you more about it.
Awesome.
But we all had this great conflict. We reset ourselves and came back, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, God, how did Cynthia put us all together like this? She knew this was going to happen. Why would you do this? And I had this light bulb moment, and I've lived it many times over since. This is exactly what sitting in a room full of your immediate team or in an executive room feels like. And the ability to work through those things and get to something better at the end is what you get out of it. So I had that learning really early on, but that was my light bulb moment. Like, this is what every day is going to be like at some point, of dealing with people who don't always agree and really work together differently. Yeah. So that was my light bulb takeaway moment.
Adria, you're nodding. You're all nodding, by the way. This is easy.
Yeah, I'm nodding because we also had a similar capstone team moment. It wasn't necessarily a knockdown fight, but it was a moment that we realized that we had one of the larger teams. Most had 5, we had 6, and there was a person on our team that we realized that we were going to not necessarily have to carry, but have to influence them to contribute more to the group in order for us to all succeed and win. And we all wanted to win. We were like, we need to win, and so we had to come up with, and for us, our teams, and for a lot of people in our class, it was the first time, that we had become people leaders, or like we had just started to become people leaders. There's one person on our team or 2 people on our team, back at our companies, and it was a light bulb moment to remind myself that I have to be able to influence this person to want to give their best for the collective success of the group, and I can't just be like, we're going to get a bad grade, you're going to get a bad grade, do better. That's not good enough. And so we had to come together as a collective 5 to influence the 6th to really, kind of pull weight. And that was interesting.
I would assume that most people who have to be carried probably don't realize they have to be carried. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever been carried, and I've never had to carry anybody, so I'm asking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, it's very top of mind, right? Many of my capstone teammates are sitting in front of me. So I think for us, I think for me, like the largest and the initial aha moment was in our very first capstone meeting. We are very different spectrums of personality types, right? Whether it was the assessment or just even that initial conversation, right? I am the little kid chasing the big red balloon, kind of a big picture guy, but I had a lot of incredible teammates that recognized this and honed me in and kept us on track. And, we all really complemented each other. So what we kind of coined the phrase in that initial meeting was putting your emotional currency on the table, right? And that is you basically sharing the good, the bad, the ugly about yourself and getting that, potentially uncomfortable situation and conversation out of the way, right? You're like, here it is. Here's the internal resume. Here's where I thrive. Here's where I, have my pitfalls. And a lot of those assessments kind of stoke that conversation. But for me, it's that inherent sense of vulnerability. Like you have to be able to give or willing to give what you expect back from people, right? So if you want people to be vulnerable and transparent with you in order to be a great working team, you have to be willing to give that yourself. So for me, that was my initial and strongest aha moment throughout the entire program.
Kevin, when you went, what year did you go through the program?
1989-90.
Was the phrase "put your emotional currency on the table"?
What are you trying to say, Kevin?
No, what I mean is, I think that's a great. It seems to me that's a great example of how the demands of leadership have changed, right?
Yeah.
Because you probably didn't worry a lot about emotional currency in 1999.
We were
89.
there 4 days, Monday through Thursday. Those that were in from out of town, they would do some things on the weekend, and most of us would go back to our offices on Friday, and they'd say, "What are you doing here? Aren't you at school?" And they'd give, and so I just was, as they were talking, I was thinking about some of the speakers we had, and I just remember Fully Klingman from HEB came, and we had two of the students, Cynthia and I went to class together, 89, 90, and two of the students were from HEB. And before he got there, this guy, he's full of love, is how he would introduce himself. Full of love, Klingman. And he just had this charismatic thing about him. And I thought, wow, where do they find these types of people to lead these organizations? And then I ran into 8 years later when we were going to go, I go into a room and Jim Donald from Pathmark, who I know you know very well, and he walks in and I just see them all cling to, and I'm like, those are the type of people I want to be around, and, different other things. And then, fast forward 47 years, do people want to be around me? And am I teaching? Am I giving back? And I always go back to Carl Schroeder in 2007 when I was working for him, said, it's time for you to stop worrying about your next job and start giving back. And so that was my aha moment. It wasn't in the 89-90 class, but that was and so I've always kind of kept that always top of mind, is, what am I giving back to this industry that's been so good for me?
Talking about.
Yeah.
And Nick. Paul. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
to me it was two moments, and you just said one of them, which was capstone. We're all competitive. We all wanted to be on stage. And Cynthia put us with a full team of type A personalities. And when we get to that first meeting and you realize you have to take a back seat and you usually lead, was an aha moment for me to do that. We had a military guy on our team, and I wasn't going to beat him out. He was the type A personality. So being able to take that secondary position or third position to help the team. And the second one, more importantly, that helped me lead my team was understanding my emotional needs, or my needs needed to be met in order to be a good leader. When I was stressed out is the times when I was a bad leader, bad father, bad husband, but when my needs are taken care of, that's when I was a better leader. So That was the aha moment for me.
Cynthia, I'm assuming that this is all on purpose. That when when it's combustible, you designed it to be combustible. I just wanted to confirm that. Nick, I think you're the only person who hasn't talked.
I won't ladder on, so Professor Geck would say don't ladder on. What they've said is fantastic. I would say that my moment came, I took my son to an event. Arguably, I've bashed on him a bit, but I'll bash on a bit more. He was a young individual in 15, mind, body, everything in between. And when we went and did NAI, that was the greatest day he and I had had together, probably in a decade, give or take. And I still have a photo of that, and I didn't realize I still had a photo of it until I pulled out the SACP and looked at it, and underneath that he wrote my favorite day, and underneath that I had a picture of him and his sister, and I said, this is what I do, why I do what I do. And I thought, crap, had I forgotten that just a short 9-10 years ago? And I had. And it made me realize that essentially we all have a reason for why we do things. And I think Kevin hit it wonderfully. The olders in the generation, if you will, have realized that there's more time essentially in the rearview mirror than out the windshield. And when you turn around and look, if no one's following or you're not leaving the legacy that you want, what are you going to do differently? And not everyone has the exact same aspirations of winning, believe it or not, in the capstone event. Some really do, and some of you are dragging along to say, well, this is what I want. But what's important to the individual is critically of the utmost importance as you lead a group and work with people. And I learned that through the process, and even need to be reminded, I'll do a better job, I promise. I'll look back at it annually because I'd forgotten my way. And so I don't know if it was an aha moment, but just maybe a reimmersion, if you will.
It sounds like an aha moment to me.